last week in Stirling in Scotland we had a joint meeting with the NAFD, and it was a real landmark occasion. Firstly, having the two organisations come together to discuss the new regulations that are coming out and are going to have an effect on all funeral directors across Scotland in the first instance, but subsequently quite probably those south of the border as well, across England, Wales and Northern Ireland. We met with Cheryl Paris, who attended the conference, and she's the manager of the burial and cremation team in the Scottish Government, and gave a very interesting report and information to the members who were attending the meeting there. There are various issues that are likely to be forthcoming for the membership. There is the introduction in the first instance of an inspector of funeral services across Scotland. The announcement of the individual who's going to be taking on that responsibility is imminent, and in the longer term there's likely to be licensing of funeral directors across Scotland. Now, this can cause concerns certainly for funeral directors across the country. However, our belief is very much that if you're of a certain standard, if you have standards that you attain, and you actually spend money in improving your premises and the quality of the service that you're able to provide, then there's absolutely nothing to be concerned about. The actual main concerns that were raised at the meeting were partly about cross-border issues, so funeral directors who are south of the Scottish border in England but are carrying out funerals in Scotland, actually how the licensing is going to affect them, and the inspector is going to affect those cross-border issues. If, for example, you're carrying out a funeral in Scotland as a funeral director from England, do you have to be licensed with the Scottish Government? These are questions that need to be ironed out, and it is very important that, along with the NAFD, that we as SAIF are able to give one voice to the government to give our views and air the concerns that we have. Another concern was how strict the governance would be, and more importantly whether there's any variation on the governance, because a company in the Outer Hebrides, for example, is going to be very different to one that's in the centre of Scotland's major cities of Glasgow and Edinburgh. And so there are issues there that need to be ironed out as to whether there's the same legislation actually required across the board, or whether there's going to be some variance in the requirements of licensing and what the funeral director would need to be able to provide. So again, that's where the conference, the discussions that were held at the conference talked about all these points that were concerning funeral directors, and certainly Cheryl Paris seemed to take on board all those issues from a government perspective, and hopefully the ongoing discussions and meetings that we have will iron out all these issues and should subsequently mean that there'd be no concerns for funeral directors going forward.